Hi there. Welcome to Tech Talk Weekly. I'm Bob from Creation Station. This is our weekly show where we give you 3 or 4 really cool, interesting tech topics, creative, sciencey type stuff. Lots of science today. And get you on your way in about 20 minutes. Weirdly, this week I did not get a single story from a listener. What's up? Creation Station at Broward.org. Send it along to us and we'll try and get them on the show for you. And this week, Hadi from the studio. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, really good. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here and welcome back to the studio again. It's an awesome thing. Tell everybody what the studio actually is if they haven't seen you before.
The studio is a designated team space here at the main library. So some of the things we do is we offer computers, we offer content creation with a green screen. We have musical instruments, we have cameras to check out, and we have TVs and art supply. Plenty of art supplies. You can make perler beads. We have paint, and we have
little
Cricut
kids.
machines. Yeah.
That's I know from being around the area. Yeah, they're like, yeah, no little kids in here. And some of the parents are always like, well, I'd like, nope, sorry, no.
Yeah.
You look over 19, no, you can't be in here. It's a good experience for them. But you know what's not a good experience? Winter. I live in South Florida for a reason. So if you have not been paying attention to the news in the United States recently, because I know a bunch of our listeners are not here in the States, Florida, land of the palm trees and all of that, is currently experiencing snow. And yes, over the years, there's always a little bit of snow sometimes hitting the very northern part of the state. You might get a little smattering of a little brush once during a January storm or something. This storm has been epic and you can see the radar video loop there. That's after it went through Pensacola. Is all of that weather still coming by? I mean, it dropped our temperatures down here in South Florida. So something like 45. Yeah, like 40 degrees in less than 24 hours. Just plummeted here. How long have you been in Florida, Hadi?
All my life since 1981.
Wow.
And I was reading up on some of the stuff. So the last time there was snow in Florida was very briefly in the morning in Walton County in 2022.
Yeah.
But for South Florida, where we are, the last time it snowed was 1977, and it reached as far as Homestead.
Yeah. No, that in 77, it was crazy. Now, back in 77, that kind of stuff didn't stay. It was one of those, okay, there's storm blows through. It was a quick thing. The whole state got a little dusting, and that's it. Right now in Pensacola, they're in their 3rd day of snow. It never sticks. It never stays. The record for the highest amount of snow ever in Florida used to be 4 inches. There we go.
Snow days. We actually have snow days in Florida.
Yeah, it was craziness. And now we're up to 10 inches up in the very northern parts of the state. And it's been 3 days. It has just been a crazy, crazy thing. So we've got some of the photos that were out there up in the northwest part of the state, alligators in the snow and stuff. So this was the fun story this week, making snow angels out there in Pensacola and off and all along the areas. Some of these pictures are just insane.
Yeah, you would think that's like New York or even the Midwest.
It is. It definitely feels like that. And then, of course, because this is Florida, we have the Waffle House Index for hurricanes.
Yep.
And yes, Waffle House is open even in the snow.
Yeah.
So we're all safe. We're all good to go. But yeah, if you're out there,
I know Pensacola libraries and Jacksonville libraries were.
Yeah. It shut down state government in Tallahassee. It's just everyone around the state was just like totally overwhelmed. And I know you're up in the northern parts of the United States, you're off, up in the mountains or in Europe, and you're like, what are you talking about? That 10 inches is nothing.
Yeah.
I think I read there was one snowplow in the entire state of Florida that they borrowed.
I was about to say,
Not like anybody has one. So yeah, we have a lot of this. This is our epic story of the fun story of the day, because it's not going to kill us. It's a fun little thing to grumble about, and then we move on. And of course, links to those pictures are in the show notes for you. But we have another story of another weird climate sort of related thing of ghost islands. So if you're out in the Caspian Sea, which I know I don't think any of our listeners are currently out in the Caspian Sea, but if you are, there's an island that's quietly disappearing right now. That's been there for about a year-ish. It's been just over a year that it's been visible. And the weird part about this story, Hadi, was they didn't know it existed until NASA pointed it out.
Wow. And that's amazing, considering like I've actually visited the Caspian Sea, and that's like one of the largest freshwater bodies of water.
It is the largest freshwater body, and then Lake Superior in Michigan. Yeah. And so what happens is there's this mud volcano that's underneath the Caspian Sea, and every once in a while it pumps up a little blurb and it forms a new island of mud. It's not like a volcano spewing lava and creating like Hawaii or other places. These mud volcano things create an island. It's a solid enough island that animals and things can land on it and do stuff, but then it just disappears.
Huh.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to share this article is NASA went back to look at it, and researchers, and were like, hey, wait, this is the third time this has happened and nobody even noticed it before. You would think in this, as the article says, in this day and age, people in boats and satellite phones and pictures and all the other stuff going around, somebody would notice there's a new island, even if it's only temporary for a few months, but no mention of it in any literature, on Instagram posts. Weirdly, the researchers were looking at Instagram posts. I know. Find it.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out like why like no one showed up, or at least like even made any mentions. And I thought, okay, maybe like the people of Azerbaijan just don't have like enough internet. But I found out 9 million out of the entire population, 9 million users of internet itself, and then out of those 9 million, 6 million also use social media.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not that hard, or you would think, oh, maybe like they didn't have it, but they do.
So here's my guess for you, Hadi, is this is one of those things that like down here, we see an alligator. Who cares? We don't even notice it. Nobody takes a picture. We don't do anything about it. Maybe it's that way for them. It's like, we get these little things all the time. Who cares? Those aren't exciting. Those aren't interesting. So why bother talking about it? Why take pictures of it? And the rest of the world is like, hey, wait. What are you doing? So,
or it might have just been so incremental they just didn't notice, and it's just.
But it's there for years. Almost 2 full years. It was partway into 23, all of 24, and now it's starting to fade in 25. I'm like, wow. The fun, cool things you find when you're out there looking for science stories and things and times to cover other issues.
Another interesting fact for Caspian Sea is it's a huge source for caviar.
That's right.
Yep.
That sturgeons that's their big export there, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's very cool. See, this is why libraries got folks. People just know. Well, do you know what CTE is, Hadi?
Yes.
You've heard about this? Mm-hmm. Tell me what you've heard about. Who do you think gets CTE?
So from what I've heard, CTE is usually, as a result of repeated trauma to the head. Some of the more common sports that it happens with are contact sports like football, boxing, MMA, and even hockey.
Yeah.
I know one of our. This is it's not a fun fact, but like, you know, one person who was a famous person who suffered from CTE was Junior Seau, who was for the Dolphins briefly and the Chargers.
Yeah, and he was a regular user up in the Coconut Creek North Regional Library. Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's an old memory for there. Wow. So it's chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Wow. You can tell I'm not a doctor. And so what happens is it's something to do with, as your brain is shaken, it creates these new gluon. I'm going to get the name wrong here. Let me try and get to the actual thing here. But basically what happens is every time your brain takes a little bit of an injury, you get a new thing, a new little scar tissue almost, in a way. And it creates these new, in the article they call them grooves, but that's, if you looked at it, you wouldn't see a groove. It's more of a flattening, actually, of all the wrinkles in a brain. And then if they get deep enough, if they get enough of them, that's when you start losing memory. You start losing ability to do things, very similar to dementia and those pieces of things. So a lot of that, if you follow the NFL, you know about that. What? Tell me, Hadi.
Yeah, and I was about to say, and I even read about like how it affects your decision making.
Yeah. One of the parts of it is that it erases your control mechanisms for violence. So people tend to be more violent the farther into this they get. So what happens is your brain is actually shrinking at the same time, which makes it slosh around more, which makes the next time something happens more likely to affect the brain, because instead of it being nicely encased and all close and protected, now it's slightly shaking in there already. And now the next time you get a big jolt. But here's the thing that I made my eyes light up about this one, with this new study that came out. One, they say it's probably more dangerous for more people than we think about, because like you said, we're thinking hockey, we're thinking football, boxing.
Yeah.
Motorcycles and bicycles are the next two most likely ways of getting CTE affliction.
That makes a lot of sense considering the crashing.
Well, no. That was the problem. That was when you start diving into this. It's not the crash. It's the constant shaking as you're going along. So as you're riding, you're out there on a cross trails, or you're going on your mountain biking, you're going around, that constant shaking as you're going is giving you the same equivalent as getting one of those big, huge hits in the NFL.
So it's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah. So if you are into any of those kinds of activity sports, that is something you need to look for. And guess what? We don't have a test for it. We don't have any kind of diagnostic thing for it while you're alive. And there's no treatment, because we still aren't sure of exactly how it works and if there's a way of stopping it once it started. I am not recommending to anyone.
The best we can do is mitigate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or mitigate.
I am not recommending don't do stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think, Hadi? What would you recommend to somebody? Bearing in mind, neither of us are doctors, and we have not given you medical advice.
Moderation, I think, at this point.
Yeah. I was kind of shocked by the whole idea. Like, I knew like kids playing tackle football in high school, concussions and that kind of stuff. It's a bad thing, and the NFL linemen and all those. But yeah, this is a mess. So take a look. If you've got people out there in sports or doing active life outside, take a look at this study and see what's going on. The links are in the show notes. And then we get to our bad story for the day, because we can't have just nice things. We have talked about this on the show in years past. The Kessler Syndrome. Do you know what the Kessler Syndrome is, Hadi?
If I remember correctly, that's the what happens if one satellite space debris hits one satellite and causes a chain reaction
So smart, sir.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And that is exactly what happens. And here I've got a video of it for you. And this video that you can see here with all those little things spinning around are all of the pieces of satellites that have broken up and are going around and doing that. And those are all the pieces that are 1 millimeter large or larger. And 1 millimeter micrometeorite type of thing is enough to put a hole through the space station.
I think I think a few years back, like one of them punctured one of the arms on the ISS.
Yeah. They've got a leak up there right now. They can't figure out how to where exactly it is from something like this.
And I think it was either Space Force or NASA itself that we could only track like up to 29,000 objects because they're only large enough to track, and that's like over 10 centimeters.
Yeah.
And so the rest, there's over 100 million.
So this is one of those doom and gloom things for two reasons. One, because it's a horrible thing. And two, we're in the middle of funding changing with a new administration. So the UN has picked up this call to say we need some new rules about launches. We need some new rules about what's going on, because if this actually does happen, and what the Kessler Syndrome and why it's such a dangerous thing and why astronomers worry about it is if it actually really happens to the full extent that they think it will and can, we won't be able to launch rockets anymore. We will just have effectively a whole bunch of little meteorites circling the Earth, and it will prevent anything from going up there. And eventually all of our cell phone satellites and all those things just die.
Yeah, we're really
and they say we may be as close as 12 years to that. They're hoping it's much longer. They think it's much, much farther. And when you hear some dates, you're like, Hadi, it's not going to happen until 2050. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but when it happens.
Well, not only when it happens, but 2050 is not that far off, folks. We're already a quarter of the way through the century. Yeah. But there's a cooler space story out there to reassure everyone. We've got better stories. These boots are made for walking. If you don't read the show notes, you don't see the bad puns that I put in there. It turns out that the old Apollo astronauts' boots that we've all seen those prints of in the moon dust, and if you go to the Smithsonian, you can see the actual suits and things like that. By the way, remember, we have a piece of the moon here at Broward County Libraries.
And we actually have one of the or a replica of the suits here.
Yeah. So those boots won't work with Artemis. It's not only that they need brand new spacesuits because we're not going back to the 60s. We're not launching something up there like the 60s, but the type of boots won't work at the south pole of the moon where Artemis is going because it's too cold. And the boots were only insulated, not heated.
So we'll need like a heating pad.
Yeah, well, that's actually what they're talking about in here. So part of the problem is to put a heating pad in there and to properly take it with your foot when you're walking your metatarsals, effectively the bony part underneath your big toe as you're walking. That part has to flex. And if it doesn't flex, you can't walk. You're going to kind of just like bunny jump along like you saw the old Apollo people doing. Well, you can't keep doing that if you're going to actually be there and working. And the heating pad, the heating element things that they have don't bend.
So what's the solution?
That's the thing about this. Sometimes there's not a solution yet. But this is a study out there. The Conversation is a great website for you to go visit. Just if you or just want something to read and you want to get away from all the other news and things, go there and read. It's really interesting, new kinds of topics that they do. But yeah, they have to design a brand new flexible boot that can walk with a brand new flexible heating element in it, kind of like a blanket, an electrical blanket.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I was thinking about. Like
Yeah.
like I said, a heating pad.
Yeah, it's just something that has to work in space because those things would just like beep, fry out in 2 seconds trying to keep you warm in the cold. Yeah, it's a really interesting engineering study thing to worry about.
Those are some really interesting problems for them to solve.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting there. We're going to go back. We're going to do this because somebody's going to go there and do this. If it's not the United States, it's going to be China or somebody else.
Mhm.
So, and that's also one of the points of this. Everybody's working on this. It's not just one country.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, China is getting us much closer to having fusion. Okay, real quick difference. Fusion is not like our current atomic energy things like
I think that
Turkey
one's
Point.
fission.
Yeah, those are fission, where we're breaking apart atoms and splitting them apart. Fusion is what happens in the sun or any solar activity like that, where it fuses the atoms together and that creates energy. And for the first time ever in our history, we've been able to do that on planet Earth for just over 1,000 seconds, which is really impressive because that like crushes the old limit of they hadn't made it past 1 minute in I think only once prior to this. But yeah, look at these big, huge, crazy machines, huh?
Yeah, I saw the previous best was 403 seconds.
Yeah.
But still, it's slow incremental progress.
Yep. I'm looking to see if they've got the video moved along to a different thing. We'll jump onto it. When you go back and visit it on your own, you'll see the video there for it. But one of the really interesting things about this is that this is one of those technologies that's going to be needed for AI. Because we need all this extra power. And in the past, we've talked about the idea of, 3 Mile Island is being brought back online, I guess re-energized by Microsoft because they need so much electricity to run their data centers. Well, if they can pull this one off, and nobody knows how long it's going to take, it's not happening tomorrow. It's not happening in 2 years. Well, maybe 2 years, but probably 2 decades. But it would be power islands, is what they're called. Islands I learned a new thing as part of this, where you build your energy or your data center and you move it to be where the other thing is. So in the case of 3 Mile Island, Microsoft's going to be building a data center out near there so that they can take advantage of the power and have it feed directly into their data center rather than being out there at, having all the transmission lines to worry about and all that stuff. And that's what they're trying to do with this. I know that looks like a big contraption, but it's just another small building to put. And so you have a big data center, and now you just put this 3-4 story building right next to your data center, and you've got all this almost infinite power. Itty bitty living space. If I'm making movie references, we better get out of here.
I was thinking that Keanu movie, Chain Reaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of really crazy stuff out there. Thank you for spinning through all these there with me, Sir Hadi.
All right, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting.
And remember, everybody, we're going through creation stations all year long. So Hadi is going to be back on here in another, at least like next month, I think you are, or whatever.
Yeah.
If I remember looking at the chart. Yeah, something like that. So we will be seeing everybody around. Let me throw my final slide up just in case anybody needs the email address again, creationstation@broward.org, or hit us up on the show notes, or hit us up on the survey as an anonymous thing. Drop us a storyline for next week. We'll see everybody then. Have a great day. Stay warm.